Hello everybody, this is Drew Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I've been sitting here laughing my ass off at this April Fool's joke that Russia has played with the Democratic Party. I don't even know if it's a joke in as much as them poking fun at the ridiculousness of that party. It's hilarious. One of my subscribers pointed out and said, "Hey, have you heard the Russian April Fool's joke?" So of course, I had to find it. Look, I read my comments for the subscribers. Usually they say stuff that's perfectly interesting. And in my experience, the people around me don't find me as interesting because they're not necessarily interested in politics. So I like to engage in these combos. Look, I put out a lot of videos. I actually like doing these videos, and I like having this dialogue and conversation. My point is, it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. So I'm going to play it, and we can come back and talk afterwards.
You have reached the Russian embassy. Your call is very important to us. To arrange a call from a Russian diplomat to your political opponents, press 1. To use the services of Russian hackers, press 2. To request election interference, press 3 and wait until the next election campaign. Please note that all calls are recorded for quality improvement and training purposes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The funny part about it is, that is kind of what Democrats are saying it's like. Like, they're trying to make this point that the only reason Donald Trump won is because of Russian interference. This Russian interference they can't prove. They don't even give the FBI servers, their servers to the FBI so the FBI can actually investigate. And the company that they use to investigate, I think it's called CrowdStrike, it's faulty, like in the way they analyze data, the conclusions that they came to. And other intelligence agencies around the world has been criticizing these guys, saying they didn't know what the hell they were doing. It's an amazing thing. Now, the Democrats, the mainstream media, like one person after another, even Sanders, have come out with this line of attack saying, Russia hacked us, Russia attacked us, Russia attacked us. Even going so far as to say, well, wait a minute, is a cyber attack from Russia that we can't necessarily prove considered or constitute an act of war? Understand the ridiculousness of this. This is ridiculous on so many counts. CIA has hacking tools. Those hacking tools show that the CIA can essentially attack all around the world, all sorts of devices, even turn on cameras like for television. Part of the tools that was released, I think it was a day or so ago, matched exactly what I've been saying on this channel. That for the most part, the CIA has the capability of replicating attacks. So the CIA can essentially make attack look like it comes from other state actors. What these companies like CrowdStrike uses are some kind of metrics in order to say, okay, this looks like an attack from somebody else. That can be faked. That can be faked. And I'm not making the point that the CIA faked it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that other state agencies, other private entities have the capacity to fake those things. So if Democrats are going to come out and say, Russia did it, Russia did it, Russia did it. Alright, give me your evidence. Let me analyze and review your evidence. I am not taking your word for it. You have a vested interest in lying to me about it. So you can understand I'm going to be somewhat skeptical at the point where you're saying Russia did it. Whether you're a shill like Rachel Maddow, whether you're a hypocrite like Bill Maher, whether you're a craven like Pelosi, whether you're corrupt like Donna Brazile and Schultz, whether you're mistaken like Sanders. In all of these cases, they've been heavy on the innuendo. They've been lacking on the evidence. Now, the Democrats themselves have a vested interest in pushing this line. They don't want to talk about why they lost. Bernie Sanders is ridiculous on this front. Because if we believe Bernie Sanders' argument, Russia attacked this country. And attacking this country, they released completely and absolutely true information that impeached the testimony of one of the candidates running in the election, Hillary Clinton. She said she wasn't for the TPP. That thing said she was. She said she wasn't in a corrupt organization. The document says she was. She was taking money in the State Department and giving favors from the State Department. Like she would take money from private enterprise in the sense of the Clinton Foundation. A private institution that has nothing to do with the state, nothing to do with the government. With money coming into that private institution, she would give favors and access from the State Department that is literally monetizing the State Department. That is a massive, big deal. I would even make this argument that it's illegal. Now, if she's going to say, well, no, I am on behalf of the American people. I am functioning, and I've had this come to Jesus moment where, no, I'm going to be a progressive candidate, and I'm going to push for causes that's going to benefit the American people. I'm not beholden to Wall Street. I'm not beholden to these oil companies and these corporate interests. I haven't been pushing to get rid of Social Security. All these things were false. The people she put in her campaign, some of them were trying to get rid of Social Security. In the same way their husband had made a deal with Newt Gingrich to get rid of Social Security. If it wasn't for Monica Lewinsky and that blowjob, Social Security right now would be privatized. That woman should get an award from every Democrat, with the exception of ridicule that she's gotten all these years. It's funny. It's funny. Now, what Russia did was funny. Them presenting this particular thing, joking about it. But they should be joked about it. Joke to a point. Because it is a serious thing. You need to understand what's taking place. The Democratic Party, almost unanimously, have made this case that another power, a foreign country, Russia, a nuclear power nation, has affected our election system, and in doing so, swung the election over to another candidate. Now, they're making this case over and over and over and over again, even asking whether or not it's an act of war. If they make the determination that it's an act of war, what? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Even if you say, yes, this is an act of war, what are you going to do? Do you or do you not have like 10 other issues dealing with the electoral process? That answer is yes. Russia is not on that list. And again, I kind of make this point. Russia doesn't matter. Not only does it not matter, if you're going to make an argument that a nuclear power nation attacked us, you want to constitute it as an act of war, then you need to prove that. You need a smoking gun proof. The Democratic Party has turned it to George Bush and his attack on Iraq. That war killed 1 million Iraqis and lost 3,000 American lives. What is the war with Russia going to do? And before you say, well, that's not possible, Hillary Clinton, if she would have gotten that office, was going to put a missile defense shield in Syria. If she would have shot down a Russian jet, are you telling me that you don't think Russia would have responded? Don't be that naive. Let's say she didn't shoot down a Russian jet. These guys have been fomenting this Russia thing for months now. Even during the election campaign, they were fomenting Russia. What do you think she was going to do when she got in that office and you would have had Democrats in Congress pushing her to behave this way? Meaning some of the Democrats asking about war and everything else. Now, the ridiculousness of this is this thing that America has where it doesn't know its history and it doesn't have context for anything, or at the very least it completely ignores context in every particular situation. Now, objectively, we'd say, well, yeah, America attacks other people in the election process all the time. America attacks other governments all the time. America went beyond hacking into an election and just obliterated a country, meaning Iraq, meaning Libya, meaning assisting in the destruction of Syria. That goes beyond hacking. You get that, right? I mean, even Honduras having some role in that particular coup. These things are going beyond just computers going into other people's code. And if we want to say hacking is an act of war, then we've attacked Iran. You can't prove the Russia thing. I wish you just stopped saying this shit. You can't prove it. Stop lying to yourselves. Deal with the reality of why you lost. Period. Stuxnet can be proven to be an American invention along with the help from the Israelis. We literally sent a computer virus into Iran. That computer virus was attacking their facilities, their nuclear facilities. It would destroy their centrifuges, all the while giving the scientists information that everything was perfectly okay, there were no problems, and the centrifuges themselves would get destroyed. Iran had no clue what was going on. It was only when that virus got out where people were like, holy shit, there's a computer virus here. There was a note or report showing that the people went to Obama essentially saying, hey, it's out. What do you mean it's out? It's out. People know. Do they know where it's from yet? Do they know it's from us? Not yet, but they're going to find out. And he was right. They did find out. They did find out. You think they did anything about it? No. You think they were playing this line that, well, wait a minute, we've attacked another country with a cyber weapon. Do you think they were calling that an act of war? No, they didn't. That never came up. Nobody cared. But on scan evidence from a company that's been completely discredited, and again, the DNC did not let the FBI, our institution that deals with investigations, look over their servers. That looks completely weird to me, and that does not pass the sniff test. So yes, Russia deserves to joke them. They're comical and clownish, and clowns get laughter. It's just the truth of the matter. They are seeing this from where they are, and they're laughing their ass off to a degree. I say a degree because understand, this is not necessarily a laughing matter. It's very possible that a Democrat, a corporate shill of a candidate, takes office in 4 years. If that corporate shill of a candidate takes office, what is the policy going to be towards Russia? Not just the policy towards Russia. Any fomenting of anything with Russia will include China. Full stop. That is infinitely important. Sometimes when you're playing chess, the positions that you think are the strongest are in fact the weakest. Part of the problem with it being weak, or part of the problem with strength, or perceived strength, is gullibility. It's this belief system that, well, this looks strong, and we don't believe that anything can pretty much break this down. And because we don't believe anything that we can break this down, we can take certain liberties with the way we behave and the things that we say and the things that we do. That's fallacy. That's fallacy. Everybody is fallible. Everybody can be taken out. During World War II, France believed that its position had been dealt with. One of the attacks that Germany did in World War I against France, they put all these defenses up. What do they call it? The Merovingian Line or something like that. The name is not right, but it starts with an M. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. But all these defenses, all these cannons, all of these troops, all of the stuff with the goal of holding Germany. Don't let Germany cross this line. That's the goal. And these are defenses to prevent Germany from doing so. Maginot Line. I think it's called Maginot Line. They thought they were impregnable. They thought that they had the smartest guys in the room and they had covered all their bases. They found a weak spot at one point, but they say, yeah, they can't do anything about that. That spot, for the most part, can't be attacked. In chess, if you can't attack something, it doesn't really matter if it's weak. The problem is, are you certain that it can't be attacked? France was wrong. Not only were they wrong, they got steamrolled because they were wrong and because they were arrogant, thinking that for the most part, all of their bases were covered. As strong as the United States is, the United States can lose a war if it's going against Russia and China. And before you say these two aren't cooperating with one another, those two are cooperating with one another. When Obama was trying to pass the Trans-Pacific Partnership, he was literally going to create this dichotomy between us and them. He consistently talking about the Asian pivot, the Asian pivot, the Asian pivot. It's a euphemism. What does that euphemism mean? We're going to do things to constrain China. Hillary Clinton was talking about putting missile defenses all around China. Why are you antagonizing another country? If they did something like that to us, you can imagine what the reaction would be. John F. Kennedy was willing to start a nuclear fucking war over missiles being in Cuba. What John F. Kennedy didn't say, and what a lot of people, when they look back at history, doesn't realize, is that the reason why Castro bought those weapons in Cuba was because Kennedy tried to off them multiple times. He tried to make that country scream, as they say. Castro, believing that he had nothing else to do but get assistance from somewhere else, went in cooperation with Russia or the Soviet Union. They put those missiles in their country with the idea that if the United States attacks us, we will fire these missiles and light that fucking country up. The reason why they did it had more to do with them feeling under threat than it had to do with any real and actual threat from Cuba in that sense. Meaning he didn't do it willy-nilly. He did it because he thought he needed to do it to protect his nation. What I'm getting at is antagonizing people like this. Coming up with these threats over and over and over again. Making these proclamations like certain things are act of war and everything else. Just because it's for political expedience doesn't necessarily mean that you won't create a situation that you are forced to act by the shills and the hacks that believe your story. Meaning that somebody can get into that office and the narrative that's been playing out for all these times constrain the person who's in power at that point to do something. The actions that they take based upon the narrative that they created creates complications that can lead this country into a war with a nuclear nation. Any war with a nuclear nation will result in a nuclear war. Full stop. You need to understand this. This is vitally important. If you and I are in a fight, if you're kicking my ass and I think, holy shit, I'm going to die. If I have a weapon, I am pulling that weapon. That is the balancer. That is the thing that equalizes the situation. If a nation is getting attacked, Russia has been invaded multiple times, losing millions and millions of people in World War I and World War II. And the United States did invade Russia at one point during the Bolshevik Revolution. The United States, along with a bunch of other nations, tried to put the previous government back into power. We've invaded their country before. They've never invaded ours. If we're going to foment this thing about how aggrieved we are that they've attacked us, then you need to have more proof than the Colin Powell, George Bush proof. If you're going to play this role, and look, if Sanders is going to play this role, Sanders is becoming Colin Powell, and he's been towing the Democratic line. This is important. This is absolutely important. Just because our military, and just because we spend more money than Russia on the military, doesn't necessarily mean that if Russia is losing, that they will not strike in a nuclear capacity. They have nothing to lose if they're going to lose a military engagement. You're also making the assumption that China will not assist Russia. During the World War II war games, it was a presentation of military arms. Massive presentation of military arms. It was like the 70th anniversary of World War II. China and Russia were in some level of coordination in doing it. Even some of the things and events that they were doing were similar. For instance, like helicopters showing numbers in the sky and all this other stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, Putin was at the Chinese display. What I'm getting to you is the way that the United States have been isolating other nations, the way they've been playing against other nations, the things that they've been saying, the antagonisms they've been putting out. They've been doing this stuff thinking that for the most part, we're unimpeachable, we're unassailable. We can do whatever we want because for the most part, we spend $1 trillion on our military and we can beat the shit out of anybody. That is not exceptionalism. That is just being a bully. And like any other bully, we haven't had the situation of having attacks here. 9/11, yes. Pearl Harbor, yes. But not a sustained bombing and damn sure not a nuclear strike. That shit will come to an end immediately if you put a Democrat in office, and if those Democrats have been antagonistic towards Russia. Beware. This joke is absolutely funny. Democrats deserve to be joked. Their approval rating is in the absolute toilet. Part of which, because of this, and people know that they're blowing smoke up people's ass. They're talking to themselves, true, but just because they're talking to themselves doesn't necessarily mean that once they get in power, they won't try to act on those things. It doesn't matter if they have evidence. That doesn't matter. Clearly, it doesn't matter. They've been playing this role for months now and has no evidence whatsoever. The mainstream media doesn't care about evidence. They've been playing this role for several months now, have nothing to show for it. Be aware. Be careful. Do not let them convince you that this stuff is real. It is not. At the very least, until they show you something that proves it. And even if they do prove it at some point, even if some evidence comes out somewhere, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? At the end of the day, if you solve your election issues, if you solve your problems associated with the election, this Operation Crosscheck, this thing where the parties are allowed to control the mechanisms of the election, even though they have a hand or an interest in winning those elections. Even if you're talking about this thing of gerrymandering, where they're putting people in power, where those people can, for the most part, sit in a particular position because they're cheating in drawing the line of their district. Even if you're talking about the whole election rigging thing. Now look, that's somewhat controversial, but there were a video where the people at some of the polling locations were saying, well, wait a minute, these machines were giving off erroneous data. And they would change the exit results to match the machine tally, as opposed to actually doing an investigation to make sure that the machine is doing the right thing. This is not a democracy. This is barely a republic. And the mechanisms that we use to choose these things are destroyed by the parties themselves. The parties themselves have a vested interest in getting elected. They don't care about the public. They don't function at the behest of the public. They function at the behest of their donors. Which means that their interest, the things that they do, the things that they care about, the balls that they fondle, are their donors. It's their donors. If you're functioning at the behest of your donors, there are going to be a lot of people who don't vote for you. Meaning you got to do whatever you got to do to get elected because you need to pay those people back from the millions or billions of dollars that you got from them. It's a bribe. They look at it as an investment. The return on their investment requires them to get elected, meaning they will do whatever they have to do to get elected. If that means attack the electoral process itself, then that's what they're going to do. And that's what we've seen them do. Both parties have done the same thing. Republicans are more egregious. But when Democrats needed to do it, they damn sure did it to get their establishment, status quo, corrupt candidate in that primary or out of the primary. Just be aware. Just be careful. The problems that we have in our country have nothing to do with Russia. And looking outside of ourselves is shallow, it's faulty thinking, and damn near loony in regards to the dangers that it presents. Be careful. Stop believing these parties. They are leading you to ruin. Alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to subscribe, like the video, absolutely comment. I love the comments, believe it or not. I do like to read them, and I do respond pretty often because, you know, sometimes people put up interesting questions or interesting things. This one guy did it was actually a pretty damn good critique of some of my philosophical viewpoints. I don't necessarily agree with him on all of it, but it's a basis of a conversation. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It allows me to fulfill my thinking or to go deeper into my thinking or deeper into my explanation and try to get across what I'm trying to get across in a more ideal way or a better way. It strengthens my argument. So, feel free. If you want to support the work, feel free to Patreon and also Facebook, Twitter, and all that good stuff. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.